Thebes was at the peak of its glory, with temples shimmering under the sunlight and sacred hymns echoing throughout the city. On one of its wide, stone-paved streets, Horemheb walked with steady steps, carrying papyrus scrolls in his hand, ready for a long day at the royal archives. He was a strong young man, his skin kissed by the sun, his eyes the color of amber. Though he was not of noble birth, he was respected for his skill in writing, an art mastered by only a few. And on that morning, his life changed forever. As he passed by the Temple of Amun, he saw her for the first time. Merit, the daughter of the high priest, walked alongside her handmaiden. Her jet-black hair was styled into delicate braids, adorned with turquoise beads, and she wore a pure white dress that reflected her noble grace. She was not permitted to speak to strangers, but when she turned to him for a fleeting moment, time itself seemed to stop. She was beautiful, beautiful beyond words, as if she had stepped out of a sacred mural. Her gaze lasted only a second, yet it left an unerasable mark on his heart. From that moment on, the Nile no longer looked the same to him, and the sun never shone as it once did. A simple scribe was not allowed to dream of the high priest's daughter. Her father was a strict man who believed she should marry only a priest or a noble of high rank. But love does not abide by rules. Horemheb began frequenting the Temple of Amun, using the excuse of needing to copy manuscripts. Each time he searched for her among the temple-goers, pretending to be absorbed in his work, yet, in truth, his heart was writing love poems on the walls of his soul. One day, as he passed by the temple, he found a neatly folded papyrus placed carefully on a stone bench. With trembling hands, he opened it and read the delicate handwriting. "O scribe who has crept into my heart like the morning light, if you are true, you will find me beneath the sycamore tree at sunset." That night, for the first time, they met away from prying eyes. She stood beneath the tree, glancing around anxiously, but when she saw him approach, her expression softened. "Why did you send me this message?" he asked in a low voice, barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted to see you, and I wanted to know if I am alone in this madness." Her words shattered his world. Their meetings became frequent, between the shadows of the palm trees, along the banks of the Nile, in the hidden corners of the temple. They exchanged letters, whispers, and glances that spoke more than words ever could. But love, when forbidden, becomes more dangerous. One night, as Horemheb waited for her beneath the sycamore tree, he felt someone watching him. He turned swiftly, but saw no one. Yet a sense of unease crept over him. He was not mistaken. A few days later, he was summoned by the chief scribe to the royal archives. When he arrived, he found a man he never wished to face, Merit's father. "I know what you have done, scribe." The priest's voice was cold. "You have defiled my daughter's sanctity with your gaze and your words. This will not go unpunished." The punishment was clear: exile to the desert or imprisonment for life. But Horemheb was not one to surrender easily. When Merit learned of what had happened, she sent him one last message: "Either you fight for me, or I will belong to another. The choice is yours." There was only one path left for him, to prove that he was not just a scribe, but a man worthy of her. He went to her father, bowed before him, and spoke with unwavering resolve. "My lord, I may not be noble by birth, but my heart worships your daughter more than men worship gold. If I am unworthy of her, then let the god Amun himself decide my fate." Impressed by his courage, the high priest agreed to test him. Horemheb was to copy a sacred papyrus without a single mistake, within one night, in a chamber lit by only a small oil lamp. It was an almost impossible task, for even the slightest error meant failure, and failure meant exile or death. But at dawn, when the priest entered the chamber, he found the papyrus completed, without a single flaw. He had won. On the night of the full moon, their wedding was held in the temple of the goddess Hathor. Merit wore a crown of wildflowers, her skin adorned with perfumes and henna. Horemheb stood tall in a white robe, the symbol of Ankh, the sign of life, resting upon his chest. Together they stepped before the priests, as the sacred waters of the Nile were poured over their hands, sealing their union before the gods. For 3 days, the city celebrated. Lights shimmered upon the Nile, music filled the alleys, and people danced beneath the stars. That night, as they stood by the riverbank, watching the water glisten, she whispered, her hand in his, "Can you believe we are here?" "I believe everything, as long as you are with me." And so, they lived a love story whispered through the corridors of time.